I have Mrs. Holness, but Mr. Morris' mic was up. Mrs. Holness, then Mr. Morris. Mrs. Holness?
Chair, after we're finished, I would want to move that we deal with some housekeeping issues.
That we want?
First question, is any specialized training afforded to the persons who drive and operate the school bus vis-a-vis what we would normally have utilized for the regular JUTC bus drivers?
Yes, member.
Yes. So far more extensive training is done for those drivers. In terms of absenteeism, where either a driver just for whatever reason not well, whatever, just has not turned up, what is the level of reserve that you have on hand to be able to still function at the optimal level? That's in terms of the drivers. And in terms of the buses, do we have any facility to be able to just drop another bus in the system if one goes down? What is the extent of that reserve provision, both in terms of personnel and equipment?
I'll let the managing director answer this one.
Thank you, ma'am. We have a driver to bus ratio of 1.5 per bus, so that we can always have individuals available when we have situations like you mentioned, sickness, absenteeism, and in instances where drivers are involved in accidents, we have to pull them from driving duties to do investigations and inquiry, and we do have to substitute other drivers. In terms of reserve buses, we do maintain 10% of the fleet for reserve in the event a bus is out for accident or major maintenance work. So those are key considerations.
Let me add, read the drivers. What is the frequency of retraining?
It's too frequent because as the buses are involved in many contacts in the rural parishes, these are not necessarily third-party vehicle contacts, but come into contact with embankment, with stones, they fall off some compromised road surfaces, and sometimes they're actually stationary and other vehicles passing them will come into contact with them. In all of those situations, we pull the buses, pull the drivers, we do rapid assessment to see whether there was any fault on the part of the driver, whether they could have done something to prevent the contacts, and in instances where we figure some retraining or resensitization is necessary, we ensure that that is done before they are put back into driving duties. So it's happening on a regular basis, ma'am.
Okay. As it relates to procuring used buses vis-a-vis new buses when the program started, just from your experience, was there any benefit from the government in terms of benefit to our students from the government making the decision to start out with used buses? One, in terms of time of implementation. Two, in terms of just having an experience and being able to do an assessment of the rural school bus system. And based on the time we have operated the buses up to the 31st of March, when maintenance will no longer be picked up by the persons we procure the buses from, have we observed any reduction, even though there are older buses, in the cost of maintenance, meaning that your very first set of costs would have had you being able to run through a bus, figure out all the issues, do your repairs and maintenance at that time, which would make future maintenance in the short term less likely to be required, or future replacement, because maintenance is both just the regular run of the mill and sometimes major work.
Remember
the experience of a trial period, really.
Okay. The experience you have had so far, I think mostly relates to students transporting the children. We are on time, we are regularly scheduled, we are a safer service. No child is left behind. There is improved student confidence. Parents are now more confident about the modality of student transport. The independent feedback that we got from the Ministry of Education suggests that there's improvement in attendance, reduction in truancy, student safety has been enhanced, and it is actually positively impacting teaching and learning. In terms of the JUTC, it was indeed an experience for us in terms of very rapid transition from policy to operation, us having to recruit, train, deploy, get involved in the whole process of retrofitting, equipping, testing the buses and running them out. We have garnered tremendous amount of technical experiences in-house, which will enable us to maintain a fleet of the sort over an extended period. In terms of maintenance costs for the buses, it has been reported before that the cost for maintenance is included in the procurement contract up to the 31st of March this year. So the company is not carrying any maintenance cost. But in our observation, in our contract monitoring exercise, we have observed that there is very little requirement for parts replacement once the routine servicing and maintenance activities are carried out. So overall, it has been a very good and perhaps I'd say
Good information.
learning experience for us. Thank you.
Okay, good information to have
You're
on the trial period. Yes,
I'd
please.
like to also add that the learning curve from the used school buses are that we would have gotten information on the types of buses going forward based on PPC's recommendation. Increased coordination, we need to be more coordinated sectorially, and we would have data in terms of our assessment. And that's one of the takeaway from the used bus is that before you wouldn't have certain data now because you were not operational. Now that the system is in place, the ministry and the JUTC is in a position to assess those data going forward.
Excellent. And my last is a comment/question, as this is a committee meeting where one can have comments and not only questions. So the question asked by member Dawes and Newell combination. When the school bus system was introduced, members of parliament were asked to identify all the school routes in the rural space where they felt it was necessary to have the rural bus service system. In my case, many of the routes still did not get a bus. So the response in respect of the Ministry of Education identifying the routes, I guess they would also have been better placed to say the extent or the number of students who would be utilizing it, and they would have prioritized based on that and the road condition. What I had also done as MP was reach out to JUTC and I'd asked them to do a recce, just drive all the routes in my constituency using the bus and identify what were the issues that caused them not to be able to put a bus on the route. And I did that for regular JUTC bus because some of those old routes no longer have buses, and for the school bus system, so that we would be able to determine if something is too steep, if it is too narrow, what is the problem that is causing you not to be able to provide that service. And through Chair PS, asking that we continue that across constituencies, along with NWA, with their priority as to the roads that they would like to work on, because our students being educated in rural spaces in particular is going to be critical to Jamaica's future. It is not fair for some students to always be behind unless they're super bright they are not afforded the privilege of what students in Manchester, in the city, or Kingston City, Ocho City, Montego Bay City have at their disposal. It's a very different experience. So that coordinated approach, especially with new buses that we would not want to see deteriorating fast in the rural spaces, is to push and have that drive to say, policy-wise, twin the efforts at improving the road network with the efforts to have the bus system maintained and our students in the rural spaces getting to school in the way that it happens for others.
Thank you
And so,
very much,
Chair,
Mr.
this is not a question. When the session is finished, I would like to raise some housekeeping issues because I find your
That will be
behavior
under
absolutely
AOB.
rude.
That will be
And
under
I
AOB.
find new members not appreciating that some of us sat and listened
we
and
will deal
learned
with that in
before we
AOB.
start.
Mr. Morris?
Member Holness, you're next.
Thank you, Chair. Through you, it was very difficult to listen and get an appreciation of where the question was going in terms of a comparison of the total cost of the used bus versus any information we have in respect of what would be the cost of a new bus for the school bus system. Are we in a position to say, after we have looked at all the costs, what is the average cost for the used bus? And do we have any idea what the average cost would be for a new bus with the specification we require? That's number one. And I was trying to split service and maintenance in my head for a reason. Service is always going to be required for both the new buses, that regular service schedule. I don't want to call it maintenance for a reason. So I would want to treat maintenance more as parts replacement instead of just the changing of oil and filters and stuff. So the old buses, the used buses that came in, I believe you have service and maintenance as a part of the contract for the entire duration. Was there a breakout between the two? And based on your response, Mr. Ellington, it seemed to me you didn't have much in terms of real maintenance work. It was just the regular service. Last but not least, what is the life expectancy of the used buses? And what would be the estimated life expectancy of the new buses?
Thank you for that question. I will answer the cost as it relates to the life expectancy. I'll let the managing director answer the cost on that. So for the used buses, it is averaging roughly about 12.5 to 12.7 per bus. And for the new buses, you're seeing an average of 21.3 million for the new buses. Over to you, Mr. Ellington, about the life expectancy of the buses.
It's ready? Okay. When you speak about life expectancy of a bus, you're talking about things like the engine, transmission, and drivetrain, and the number of mileage that a bus may run before it requires midlife refurbishing or before its full life cycle expires. In the case of the rural school buses, the first tranche that are now in the fleet, these are American-made buses. They come with the, what's the name of the engine? Cummins engine, Allison transmission, the best in the world. They have a life cycle of up to 500,000 miles before they are due for major overhaul or refurbishing. The average age of each of these buses is 12 years. The average mileage that we have recorded for the buses, about 160,000, which means that they are not even at pre-life stage as yet if they are operated under normal conditions and they are regularly serviced and maintained. So the life cycle of these buses, if we care for them the way we should and the way the industry recommends that they are cared for, could be another 12, 15 years under our operating conditions, given the average daily mileage that each bus is expected to run. It's a little bit different for buses that are deployed, for example, within the KMTR, where these are from a different region of the world. The components may not be as sturdy, and engine and transmission components might be different, and hence the reason why they are much cheaper. And we have seen where buses are doing as many as 100,000 kilometers in a year, when the industry standard should be around 30, 40,000 kilometers. So it is quite possible that newer buses could expire before some of the older buses, depending on how they are worked, how they are serviced, how they are maintained, and a number of other factors.
Thank you very much for that response, because I've gotten a sense that the used buses we got from the US were extremely sturdy school buses. When you listed the features or benefits of the bus that we procured, I didn't hear one particular area that I found useful. Don't know if it is so, but I do know someone who drove one of the school buses in the US, and he said one of the features, the safety features, was that it had metal panels on either side, heavy duty metal panels. So if you run into a coaster bus or a highest bus, a child would be far more likely to be injured than one of these buses. Does that feature actually exist in the bus, one? And two, would that feature be in the new buses that we would seek to procure? One of the limitations I would suspect would be that middle section at the back of the bus, which is glass. But I've noticed that the students are seated. I don't know, do we carry students standing as well? Or do we, make the effort to ensure that all the students are seated where they would be safest? And what would be the features for the new buses in that regard as well, in terms of safety? And instead of going back around, I'll ask a question coming from Member Morris behind me. He was concerned about the brake capacity of the buses, given our terrain and climate, where the rural spaces significantly deteriorate and we have hilly spaces to traverse, whether or not you had a specialized braking system that currently exists, and if not, would be considered for the new buses. Into the response, a lot of persons still believe the rural bus system is a school bus system. I think we should use this opportunity to remind persons that the rural bus system is for currently the rural spaces of Jamaica. Because a lot of persons ask me, so why are we not getting a bus from Papine to Garden Town? Why Bull Bay doesn't have any of the bus? And I have to keep reminding them it is a rural bus system. So we probably need to delve into that a little bit more.
No, I'm not sure the point you're making. Are you saying that it's not a rural school bus program? It's a broader program?
Rural school bus program, as the name rural suggests. So a lot of persons will still be asking, so St. Andrew is rural, Bull Bay is not rural. Papine to Garden Town Square is not rural. But they're asking over and over, what about us? Why we don't have any of the school buses? And so I'm not sure if it affects other constituencies where...
Because those routes are served by JUTC already.
So I have to keep going over it and saying JUTC service is adequate there. If you're having a challenge with the the volume and quality of service, let us know. But the school bus system now is a rural one and dedicated to those spaces. So I think they should take the opportunity to just so reiterate and remind Jamaicans when you're wrapping up what the idea is in having this rural system and why it will only cater to certain spaces.
All right. Thank you, members. We're now moving to item 8. Any other business?